Okay, so today I'm going to be going over my 10 favorite cutting hacks. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first cutting hack I want to talk about is substitution. So what is substitution? As it sounds, it's basically just going to be when you're substituting out one food for a new food. Obviously with cutting, our goal is to lose weight. So an example of substitution for cutting, and you could also use this for bulking when you're now going from your cut to your bulk, but an example of substitution for cutting would be switching out the pastas in your diets for things like rice and potatoes. Because the rice and potatoes are, comparatively to how much you're going to eat of that food, they're lower calorie options. Obviously, if you look at it, one serving of pasta is typically like 180 to 200 calories, and one serving of rice or potatoes is about 180 calories. So at face value, it probably looks that it's going to be the same. But if you think about it, when you eat rice, most people don't eat more than like a half a cup of rice, which is only one serving. Whereas with pasta, most people are going to eat well more than one serving. You're going to eat somewhere in the area of like 2 to 3 servings. So that means then the pasta in your meal is going to be like somewhere between like 400 to 600 calories, where if you just do that one serving of rice, it's going to be like 170, 180 calories. And the same goes along for the potatoes. Another example of substitution in your diet would be if you're using like olive oil or butter to like throw in a pan so that stuff doesn't stick, try switching to like a 0-calorie cooking spray, because like a tablespoon, or maybe it's a teaspoon, I can't remember, but whatever one serving of olive oil is 100 calories. That's a lot of calories, especially for something that's so little, because as I said, it's either a tablespoon or a teaspoon, can't remember which, but that's not a lot. So, and then if you're using butter, that's probably gonna be like 50 to 100 calories as well. Whereas if you just switch to a 0-calorie olive oil spray, that's gonna be 0 calories. So you're saving yourself already like 50 to 100 calories before you've done anything or even made the meal. So those are just two types of substitution, and obviously you can use this in a bunch of other situations, but those are just like the two most common ones that I use, at least in my diet. So I want to do those two first. Okay, tip 2, this is going to be a pretty simple and obvious tip in a sense, but you're going to want to pick foods kind of similar to like what I just said for the last tip, but that are low calorie options. Obviously we're cutting, we want them to be low calorie, but you want to pick low calorie options that you can still eat in high volumes and they're still low calorie. So a great example of this is for snacking, right? A lot of times people like having like a salty snack after dinner or something, or just maybe to tide them over to get from lunch till dinner. So a lot of people might have just like a regular chip brand, right? You'll have a couple of chips, but like you're probably going to want more, and you're going to have one serving. That's probably going to be somewhere between 100 to 200 calories, right? But if you had something like popcorn instead, popcorn, you can sit there for like 10 to 15 minutes just eating out of a bag of popcorn, and that entire thing is only going to be like 100 to 200 calories compared to those chips where you might get like 12 to 15 chips and you're done, and you still probably want more. But if you're trying to stick to your diet and you're really strict about it, you can only have those 12 to 15 chips. Whereas if you give yourself popcorn, you can sit there for like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe less or more, right? And you're just like munching on that popcorn, having a good time, watching a movie, watching a show or whatever, and like you get to actually eat for like that long duration of time. And then by the time you're done with the popcorn, the other thing is you're probably not going to want to go make a whole nother bag of popcorn. Where like if you got chips in front of you, you're just eating out of a bag of chips, you're just going to keep eating out of that bag of chips. If you want a couple more chips or whatever, you're going to have more. But like with popcorn, not only is it a low calorie option, but also you have to go make more. Like it's not like there's just more popcorn. You finish that one bag that's like 100 to 200 calories and you're done. That's it. So that's another tip too for having, you want to do low calorie foods you can eat in volume. And this also goes for your meals as well. Tip 3, this one is simple, but honestly, probably for me at least, when I first implemented this, one of the most important cutting tips that made it so much easier for me to be able to cut, and that's cutting out liquid calories. You should not be consuming your calories through liquids unless you're having like a greens drink or something. Outside of that, or maybe like an electrolyte drink if you're dehydrated, outside of that, all of your calories should come from food sources. This is going to allow you to eat more so that you're not hungry all the time. If you're having like a Gatorade, like 2 Gatorades a day or something, that's like probably like 250 to 300 calories. Like that's like half a meal right there. You can make, that's literally taking out half of one of your meals. So if you can just cut out those liquid calories, that means your sodas, your Gatorades, your coffee. I know a lot of people like coffee, so you still have your cup of coffee or whatever. But even with coffee, like not adding as much milk or creamer or pumps of sugar and all that extra stuff to your coffee that you're now just drinking. Like, you do not want to be drinking your calories, because when you're drinking your calories, they're not going to make you full. If you ever had like a protein shake before, at least this goes for me, like I'll have a protein shake and like it'll tide me over for like an hour if I was hungry. But like that shit is not filling me up. I'm not full after a protein shake. So that's why I would say, like, you really don't want to be consuming liquid calories, because that's just going to make you be hungrier more often, which during a cut, that is the worst thing to be, is hungry, because then you're just thinking about all the foods, you're craving all these foods that you just can't have because you're trying to cut. So make sure you're cutting out those liquid calories. Next one is not actually a diet hack, it's just for cutting in general though. It's you need to be trying to get at least your 150 minutes of cardio in a week. So whether that be walking, doing something a little more high intensity so you can cut down the minutes a little bit, like maybe doing like the Stairmaster at a high intensity, or going for a long run or something, whatever it is, it does not matter, biking, whatever. Just make sure you're trying to get your cardio in, because that's just going to allow you to burn a little bit more calories and you can eat a little bit more. It's not like you're going to be adding an extra 2 meals a day because you start doing your cardio, but you can just burn a little bit more calories every day and be able to eat a little bit more. Also, especially if bloating is like an issue for you and you don't want to be bloated all the time, if you walk after your meals, maybe just go for like a 10-minute walk after all your meals if you can. And like, that's getting steps in. It'll help you digest faster, so you might decrease some of that bloating. And if you go and just do like a 10-minute walk after every meal you have, just some type of extra, like some walk, right? You're going to be burning calories, and that's going to add up throughout the day. No one said you got to do all of your cardio at one time. If you want to break it up and just do like multiple short walks throughout the day, you can do that. Another great thing that a lot of people do is making sure they get their 10,000 steps in a day. That's the recommended amount. If you can get your 10,000 steps in a day and really focus on that while you're cutting, like that's a good amount of cardio you're getting in every day. It's not high intensity, and it doesn't need to be. Your cardio does not need to be high intensity, but as long as you're getting it in, you're getting it in, and that's what really matters. So make sure you're trying to get that 150 minutes in a week. Okay, the next one is back to the diet. Also, I did just want to say, I realized I should say this now, these tips aren't in any particular order. They were just kind of how I came up with them in my head, like when I was like trying to think of things for this video. These are just the order I came up with them in. So the next one is for your protein sources. A lot of people are going to be using chicken, fish, and then like red meats are like the main 3 protein sources that most people are using outside of like a protein powder, right? So if you can, obviously I'm not saying for every single meal, but try and switch from like your red meats to chicken and then like certain fishes like tilapia. Because when you switch from red meats to chicken and tilapia, you're getting about the same amount of protein per serving, but you're cutting the calories all a big amount. For example, like 4 ounces ground beef, typically going to be somewhere around like 200 calories and somewhere around like 20-25 grams of protein. Whereas if you do 4 ounces of chicken, so you get the same amount of ounces, right? You're going to get the same amount of protein, about 20 to 25 grams of protein, but it's only going to be about 100 calories. And then depending on what you season it with, then obviously that's going to add a little bit of calories. But just like the raw food itself, you're cutting the calories almost in half for the same amount of protein. And the same goes with like tilapia. Tilapia is a great cutting food because it's about 100 to like 120 calories, I believe, for like 20 to 25 grams of protein as well. Like, you're getting really good calorie to protein ratio. Because that's going to be really important when you're cutting. You want to try and find ways to get the most amount of protein in the least amount of calories. I did the little quotes because like obviously you still need to be getting your calories in. You don't want to be eating in too big of a deficit, but I just wanted to let you guys know that like those are some better options. Obviously, if you want to have a steak one night or you want to have ground beef, whatever, you want to have some tacos with some ground beef, whatever, that's obviously fine. But on like a more regular basis, if you can try and switch to like chicken and tilapia and things like that, it's going to make it easier for you to cut. Because then you can increase maybe the volume a little bit of some other things, or it's just going to be a little bit easier to cut and hit the macros of the day. Okay, the next tip is a really simple one, but if you're having the issue where you're not really getting full from your meals, this will probably really help you. I'd say about 30 minutes before your meal, go get a glass of water 8 to 16 ounces, whatever, and drink that in the 30 minutes before your meal. Every single meal, before every single meal. What that's going to do is it's going to put a little bit of water in your stomach, and you're likely just going to get full off a smaller amount of food. So this is just kind of like a little cheat to be able to make it so that you get full a little bit faster. Because I know I found ways to increase the volume of my food, which is, as I said a tip earlier, you want to eat low-calorie foods in high volumes so you stay full. But if you're still not getting full for whatever reason, you're just a really hungry person, whatever, then what you can do is have a little bit of water before your meals, and that'll make you get full faster. Next thing, so you're going to want to pick to eat foods that have a high satiety index. What does that mean? What does satiety index mean? Satiety index is basically, what that means is how full you're going to get off eating those foods. So, for example, we've all sat there with like a bag of chips, and it feels like you could just sit there and eat those chips forever. Like you're just not getting full at all. But then there's the opposite of that, where it's like, if you can't just eat chicken like forever in one sitting, like you're gonna get full, right? The reason for that is protein has a high satiety index. So foods that are higher in protein are gonna make you full faster. Satiety just means how full you are. So you can literally look up the satiety index of foods. If you just do like a quick Google search, you can literally search up what foods have a high satiety index. Then you're gonna look through like a list. I believe there's like a site that has literally like almost every food, right? And you can literally just scroll through and figure out the foods that you like that have a high satiety index and incorporate those more into your diet and just start eating those foods a little more frequently. As I said though, protein has a high satiety index. So any food that's high in protein is gonna have a decently high satiety index. One last thing to add to that is carbs typically don't have a high satiety index. That's why there's a lot of foods like that you can just keep on eating. So you're gonna wanna try and not cut out, you do not need to cut carbs out of your diet, but you're gonna wanna try and limit them to a degree. So for example, for me, when I'm bulking, I will typically allow myself to snack. But when I'm cutting, I try and take out like all those like carby snack foods like chips, goldfish, things like that. Because I know if I'm not careful, I might just overindulge and just start eating all of them. And then I'm going to have way too many calories that day and it's going to be an issue. So I try and cut those out while I'm cutting, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to cut out things like rice. Like rice is a lot of carbs, but I'm still going to have rice. As I literally told you guys earlier, that's one of like the substitution methods that I use. Go from pasta to rice. Okay, the next one, this might not be a tip for everyone, but if you're someone who like you notice or you'll catch yourself just eating just because like you're bored, a lot of times that's just because your body like almost like enjoys the chewing motion. So what I do, because I definitely have caught myself like where I'm just bored and I'll just like grab food. I'm not even hungry at all, but I'll just start eating because I'm bored. If you have gum around you at all times, gum is typically gonna be like 5-10 calories. And if you just like sit there and pop a piece of gum, it's only gonna be like 5-10 calories, so it's not a lot. And then that'll kind of like tide you over and it'll kind of satiate that feeling of like you wanting to like just sit because you're bored and eat something, because you'll have that chewing sensation going on. So that'll kind of fix that issue for you. A lot of times for me, like when I'm done with a meal, I'll just like pop a piece of gum and then I know like, okay, I'm done not eating anymore until my next meal, a couple hours later. Next tip is, if you can, obviously I know this might be difficult depending on your age or just your living situation in general, but try and cook most of your own meals if you can, because they're just going to be lower calorie meals, and it's way easier to try and figure out the macros on a meal when you made it. You know all the ingredients, you know about how much you use, so you can actually figure out how many calories are in each meal you're eating a lot easier. Whereas when you go out, it's a lot harder. Obviously, there's going to be situations, you might have a birthday dinner, a business meeting, or whatever it is where you have to go out and eat, or maybe you're just really tired from work one day and you want to buy something out. That's fine. Obviously, you can eat out. But what I would say is, if it's going to be on a more regular basis, try and go with like grilled chicken options or salad options, or just those lower calorie options on the menu, so that yes, you're eating out and it's probably going to be a less healthy meal than if you had made it yourself and prepared it for yourself, but at least you can go with the lower calorie option, so it's not going to mess up your cut as much. And obviously, if it's going to be something that's not very regular and maybe it's just like for an occasional birthday or something, enjoy your meal out. One meal out is not going to kill you. One cheat day doesn't ruin your diet. Like, you'll be fine. So don't be afraid to occasionally have what you want out, but if it's going to be something that's like a little bit more regular, like more than once a week, and even once a week is a little, once a week's fine, because you can have one cheat day a week. But if it's going to be something that's a little more regular than that, then that's when you should really try and consistently be having those grilled chicken options, those salad options, and as I said, the low calorie options. So this is our last tip of the day. You're going to want to switch from the non-sugar-free version of items to the sugar-free versions. And as well, like if you're going with like a cheese, from the version with the fat to like the fat-free. Because what that's going to do is allow you to cut the calories down a little bit. For example, when I buy syrup for like my French toast recipe, also I'm going to put one of those little like banner things at the top, which is a link to my cutting recipes video. But when I buy syrup, when I'm bulking, I'm going to use the regular like 50 calorie serving syrup. I think that's what it is. But when I'm cutting, I'm going to use the sugar-free syrup. And I can't remember the exact brand, but I'll put up a picture of it right now. But it's 5 calorie sugar-free syrup, and honestly, this is a personal thing, but I actually really enjoy the syrup. Like, I've thought about buying it even while I'm bulking just because I like it. I typically will switch to the non-sugar-free version just because I need the calories a little bit and it tastes relatively similar. But switch to the sugar-free versions. You can save yourself so many calories that way. And as well with like if you can switch like the fat-free version of stuff, because even with things like cheese, where it's not gonna like cut it in half or like get rid of all the calories when you go from like regular to fat-free, you're still gonna save, like, even if it's like 15 to 20 calories a serving, that's gonna add up over the weeks and over the months or however long you're cutting for. Or if you just, let's say every meal you're saving like 50 to 100 calories and you're eating 4 meals a day, at the end of the day, that's an extra like 400 calories you might be saving that you can now have added back to those 4 meals you're eating. So just trying to implement as many of these tips as you can. But as I said, like, you want to try and go with whatever like the lower calorie version is. Example, like breads. There's a lot of breads that are like 80 calories a slice or 110 calories a slice. But if you use 647 bread, that's just the brand that I typically use, that's 40 calories a slice. That's pretty low. That's really low calorie for bread. So that's just another example of like switching to the low calorie version. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're able to implement a lot of these cutting tips and being able to lose the weight you want to get those summer shreds. And I hope you enjoyed. All my links are in the description. I hope you enjoyed once again. Like, comment, subscribe, check out one of the next few videos, and I'll catch you on next Sunday at 5 p.m. Catch you there.